So we'll go ahead and start. So I want to thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate you. And one of the first questions I'll ask you is for you to introduce yourself, let everybody know your name, your full name. I know I was having trouble with how to say your first name.
My name's Minami, but
Mina.
an easy way to remember it would be think of tsunami because they're both under the same family.
Does it have a? Is that from a specific? Does it come from somewhere, or is it a common name?
No, it's not a common name. I've looked it up. It seems to be that I'm the only one with that name. But it's Japanese,
Okay.
so it means beautiful wave, kind of like tsunami means big wave.
Oh, so that's okay. Okay.
hmm
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the art that you make.
That's really hard to describe. I usually like to paint whatever, I don't know, makes me happy. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's how I started, because painted when I started drawing and being, had an affinity for art as like at a very, very young age. So I would just like sketch. And then, as I started getting into painting, it's just things that I wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just grew into that. I don't know. When you ask that question, it's kind of hard to really sit down and chew on it and then come up with a, I don't know, full encompassing answer. But yeah, I would have to say that it started off with whatever I wanted to draw, and then eventually it evolved to be where it's whatever I was feeling, whatever I wanted to, whatever message I wanted to send, and then that's how it just worked now.
Would you say there's like a feeling in each one of your paintings?
Yes, some more than others. Um, with my collection of Life is a Carnival, which is just a series of skeletons living life. They portray a lot of either moments, memories, or feelings. And that collection was inspired by basically a line or a verse from Ramon Ayala, Un Puño de Tierra,
Mm-hmm.
where basically, what we do in life, only memories remained, and that really resonated with me. And so that's where the birth of that collection came to be. Um, let's see. So some of the paintings are in there. They're happy. There's prideful. There's memories. But I say the most emotional ones are the ones that are coming out recently, and that's just to help me exercise some of the, I don't know, more saddening and hurtful events in my life.
Do you do like a collection that you put out because of what it means to you when you put out your art, or are you putting one canvas at a time?
Basically, one canvas at a time. With that collection, I did start off with the intent of having more than one,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, once I got my fill of making a bunch, I kind of take breaks, and then 1 minute I'll be doing something, and I'm like, oh, I need to paint that, and then it just kind of adds to that. Um, and so the Life is a Carnival skeleton collection, it just keeps growing. I'm like, some of it's at Bird Dogs
Mm-hmm.
for people to own. So yeah.
And we'll get into kind of the situation. I've asked some of the artists kind of their journey into getting into a gallery, and they've talked to me about it, and it was a little bit more detailed than I thought it would be. It almost sounded like people were signing like record labels. They, they were just like, I don't know if I want to be associated with this, and I don't know if I want to do this, and I want to my aspirations are this and that, and I think doing it through this gallery, and I'm like, whoa, this is sounds really intense, or maybe it's all in their head, I don't know, but they really felt that they um, wanted to be careful where they put their art. Is that a concept you've come across, or is that a concern you've had yourself?
No, that hasn't come across my mind. I was just happy that I was able to get into a gallery. I was like, ooh, you know, 2021 was a very stellar year for me. So a lot of things were going on. I was painting murals, I was doing art shows, and then the icing on the cake was, you know, I was able to get my artwork into a gallery, and so I was like, you know, I was feeling really good, and just happy to be in a gallery. So I would have to say that maybe this year I've taken a step back
Mm-hmm.
and just gone back to what I usually like to do is just paint for myself and myself only. If people like it, that's great. But yeah, I mean, it's only been recently that I've painted publicly.
Really?
Yeah.
And what's that relationship with the clients? Are you doing commission work, or are you only doing strictly, like you said, just the art that you're happen to be doing?
I do have some clients. I have been fortunate enough to have really good clients, um, you know, very understanding, open with the projects. I think most important is um, a line of communication. That's really important because if you as a client are interested in having an artist being commissioned to do a painting, it is
Mm-hmm.
really important that you communicate that, you know, right down to colors, feelings, because, or at least for me, how am I supposed to give you something that you'll love or that's going to resonate to you if you don't communicate with me? And so for me, more is better.
Okay. So you're kind of it's going back to what you said earlier about your emotion going into your painting. You also want to know your client's emotion, or I guess the expectation that they might have of what their
Just
um,
just just a parameter.
parameters. Okay.
Yeah, that really helps me. Um, I've noticed that with clients that don't speak with me, they just kind of like give me very vague answers. The painting falls short.
Mm-hmm.
Where I've had others who just tell me, well, you know, I'm doing this. They give me a reason, what they're thinking, and then I just ask them a series of questions like, hey, you know, when you look at this painting, what do you want to feel? Do you want a sense of remembrance, a sense of joy, pride, or do you want to reflect back on something sad but will help you push through that sadness? For example, I've done paintings of loved ones who have passed on, and so that's really important because how we process grief is different. And so one person wants to reflect on the memories, another one wants to, I don't know, solemnly look at the past. It
Mm-hmm.
just depends on the person.
Well, I never really heard that from artists. I think in the most part that I've talked to people, they're more just like you said, the parameter to an extent of maybe colors or style.
Hmm.
Um, but wow, you really do ask some pretty deep questions to your clients. That's pretty.
Well, yeah, because I've had two. Like one, it's a print, but it's called Siempre Conmigo Lea, and it's a purple skeleton on a bed of roses with a
Mm-hmm.
cat painted on it. And basically, that painting was in memory of my sister in law's cat. She loved her to pieces, and unfortunately, she passed away. So, you know, I know the feeling of losing a pet and how painful it is. So I cried in that one, I remember. So there's actual tears in that painting. And when she got it, she started crying too.
Wow. My dog passed away last Saturday. I'm supposed to get her cremation today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's a lot of emotions when you lose a pet, and a lot of the same feelings that when I've lost loved ones. I wouldn't, I know how people feel about hierarchy here of people and animals and stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever um, would hold the death of my animal as high as a sibling or something, but it's up there, and it's very deep in it's a different love. It's a different loss.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, but
it,
it's a loss nonetheless.
yeah, and it's a loss of something you've cultivated. You know, you do that with your family as well. So it's a particular loss of, you know, sometimes you lose your friends, sometimes you lose your therapist, sometimes you lose, you know, your drinking buddy,
You
whatever your
hope you don't.
situation, you know. And my dog was always my you know, just my dog, and I'd always have her to pet her, and when I was down, she was always having a good time, and you know, unfortunately, she passed away, and now I'm getting her, and then even my girlfriend was looking at putting up some pictures of her, and then so then I want to do some, I want to make some art myself. Um, when it comes to your clients, do you? I don't want to call them clients. I don't know if you have a better word of calling it or something.
I mean, some of my clients have gone on to become my friends, but I guess a word that they don't mind that I use is patron.
Patron, collector, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't used the word collector, but I mean, I guess when I meet new people,
Mm-hmm.
I refer them as a client, or that at least that's what my contract is that I have, what they sign, so that way it protects me and them. But I guess a patron, and then some of them have become my friends. I really haven't settled on a word yet.
Mm-hmm. Um, how long did it take you to kind of grasp the idea of someone just like wanting to collect your art?
Mm,
It is just it is what it is, or you're like trying to like, well, why?
well, sometimes I'm not aware that people are collecting my artwork. It's nice that they do. I had a pleasant surprise. So one of my paintings at Bird Dogs, it was All I Need.
Mm-hmm.
It's red and it depicts two skeletons, one in a veil and the other one in a hat. And the hat happens to look like a sun. Most people don't know it's an actual hat. But they messaged me, they DM'd me on Instagram, and I didn't even know. They're like, hey, I bought this painting. I was looking at it and looking at it, and I walked away and I just started crying. So I had to go back, get it. And, it just really resonates with me. I really appreciate your artwork. And so when people tell me it's a real pleasant surprise, I was like, oh, yeah, people are buying my artwork. Sometimes it feels surreal.
Did you struggle to let go of your art?
Yes. Yes. Especially that one. I mean, all my paintings are basically a little piece of me, a piece of my soul, because I pour a lot into it. And I can tell you with that particular painting, All I Need, as much as I was happy to know that someone bought it and they contacted me and telling me that they loved it and how it resonated with them, I was really sad to let it go. And that's the hard part. It almost feels like, I don't know, someone took a piece of my heart, and then I have to look at it this way. That person loved it enough to talk to me, and I know that it will be taken care of. Now, as far as my other paintings, I'm trying to be less attached to them, and that's not easy to do.
Do you do you have any artwork that you collect from anyone, or that you know?
No, no.
Is
Um,
that common amongst artists?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. Up until 2021, I didn't really mingle with any other artists. I was very isolated. See, I was from LA, and I remember LA being a lot of free events. I'd go to the parks and all of that stuff, so I'd see a lot of art and be exposed to them, but not necessarily meet the artists. And I was young,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously I come to Bakersfield, and the only art that I'm exposed to is in my junior high and high school. After that, it just really, to me, didn't feel like it existed. So I often felt that I was the only one because I just never knew. Because people don't share that.
Yeah.
And this is before Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And so I would often just have my sketchbook, and only during a few times when I would have my book out with me, someone would take interest in my work. What are you drawing? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, passing the time, just drawing whatever I want, because I always keep it with me. And then maybe just like once in a while, someone is like, oh, I draw. And then I'm like, do you have your sketchbook with you? Do you have anything on you? Because I don't get to see other people's artwork. So for me, it's a real treat to see other people's work. Because it's like, wow.
I guess now that you say that, I got kind of giggly and kind of bubbly about. I'll be at an artist's house, and they're working on something,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll comment on it, or I'll just kind of look at it. But it took me a while to realize that sometimes I'm seeing things months before anybody else will see it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Especially when it's such a beautiful, beautiful painting,
mm-hmm.
or just exciting how they made it, because you kind of, through taking some art classes, coming across other artists, you go, oh wow, that wasn't easy, that was,
Mm-hmm.
that took this to that.
Oh, yes, as I think with Instagram, or basically social media, it has opened a very intimate door into the lives of artists. For example, I mean, I don't do it often, but I try. It's just, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I don't want to set up a camera or have my phone while I'm painting. I just want to be in my process, and I'm like, leave me alone. But I'll try to record my sketches, my painting process, the levels, and then the final reveal.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see that other artists do that, it's like, oh wow, I see the thought process. I see how long it took them, because then you're if you're really following them closely, you're like, oh yeah, I remember when she was like doing that like a year ago, and it was just preliminary sketches. She wasn't even sure she was going to do that, or he.
Mm-hmm. Do you look back at your art and you can see your growth?
Oh yeah.
I know I can scroll to someone and I can see kind of someone's art. I wouldn't say better, but it's definitely cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
The layering is intentional. Like, it's just more intentional, I guess, is the best way to say it when you're looking at it.
Mm-hmm. So
My opinion, whatever, subjective.
so I did put out a video one time, but then I deleted it a while ago. I actually have my collection of all my sketchbooks from my childhood through my adolescence and into my adulthood. And so sometimes I like to go back down memory lane and just see, my humble beginnings. I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember this. I remember what I was thinking. I remember what I was doing. I remember where I was at. And then I see the progression of my growth. And so I keep those very safe. Nobody touches them. I'm like, no, because, they're old. They're, some of them are like 25 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great that you kept your art. I think I've been doodling for a while, but I don't think I've ever kept any of them. Usually, when I'm done with them, I was kind of done with them, and then I would just kind of toss them, and maybe I'd put them up on a wall for a little bit, but then I would move, and then in moving them, I'd kind of like damage them, or I'd be like, I remember this thing, man. I can't remember. I thought this was nice, and I just start tossing stuff away.
Oh no. Like I said, every drawing, even if it's insignificant, it is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's something that my mom instilled in me. See, when she came here to the United States, she had to leave everything behind.
Mm-hmm.
Everything behind. All of her stuff, everything that she knew, gone. And she was left with nothing. So she had to build up. And so that kind of residue stayed with me, where you just got to keep everything, because you never really know when you need it, or you might want to look back on it. Yeah, so I guess that trauma from her resonated with us.
Is there mediums that you're trying now that you haven't tried before?
Oh yeah, spray paint.
Spray painting.
Spray paint.
I've seen you do the cans.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been doing the spray painting?
About a year.
a year.
I'm no by no means am I an expert? No, but sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I made that. That looks really good, and I'll surprise myself. I'm like, oh wow, I did. Okay, okay, let's keep going. Let's see how we can get better at this.
So I by no means am. I'm trying to be an artist. I guess I don't know if you should say trying to be an artist, but I know I'm making an attempt to sell art. I guess to go from my private drawings and sketches and paintings to hopefully commission work and selling them.
Well,
Um,
from the moment you create, you are an artist.
Thank you. Um, so I'm hoping to sell these things. And every time I try a new medium or I try, either things that I've learned from Deidre, attempts on YouTube to do watercoloring, and then things I've learned from Brandon doing the stencil stuff. There was always these steps that when I met somebody, they helped me skip a few struggles, and maybe even some heartbreaks of giving up. Just like, oh, why wouldn't it come out,
Mm-hmm.
or even like I mentioned, and we can come back to the what you
Oh
mentioned about the
yeah.
painting. Like had I just tried it and I ruined it, I probably would have been like, why am I wasting my time doing this, man?
Mm-hmm.
I would have kept doing it because I love doing it, but I would
Yeah.
have had that short little conversation with myself, like, oh, why? I can't believe you did that. You should have researched some more.
Oh yeah. Well, I
what,
think
what were some of the finish your thought, and then also what were some of the struggles you went through when you moved over to spray paint?
let's see. So to go back to hypothetically ruining your painting because you haven't, thank goodness. Okay. Um, Even if you did, and you say, you know what, that's that. We're gonna scrap that. One, it's a learning experience. Two, you might see that your boo boo turned out to be the thing that it needed. You'd be like, oh yeah, that looks much better. Or, you know what, let's try this. So it's always something that you can mold and ply and pull apart and redo again. And that's the wonderful thing about art. And then I kind of just forgot what you were going to say or asked me.
What was no, you were finishing your thought, and then don't worry
I'm
about it.
like,
We'll do this
woo!
off. Then we're gonna take a break in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When you moved over to spray paint, what were some of the things that you had to kind of learn before you got something you were happy with as far as your art that you put out?
Um, so when I moved over to spray paint, it was a huge, I don't know how to say it, like a huge learning curve. As I understood that um, can contains paint, point, and spray. That's all I knew. That's sad, but yes. But what I didn't understand was, there are some cans that have different pressures. There are caps that have different
Tips.
sizes, tips. Some are soft, some are hard, some are small, some are fat. And I always thought the fat ones were funny because the name fat. I'm like, um, and so learning and experimenting with those, that was interesting because when I first started, I would spray. My hands were very shaky because they weren't used to grasping something that way. I have really small hands, by the way. And so grasping onto these cans and pointing down, I remember my hands being very shaky. And when I was done at the end of the night, my forearms would be so sore because you don't realize just how much you have to put in with your body because you're moving around. They say you need to move with your body in order for you to make this work. I would just go to bed sore. I was like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. But I pushed on and I ended up really falling in love with it. And I've always been a fan of graffiti art. I mean, I have books on graffiti art around the world, graffiti art from LA, and I would just, admire all the work. I know a lot of people, most people don't like it because they think, they equate it to tagging.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, no, graffiti art earns its place among fine art.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, when you were learning about the paint can tips, did you like ask somebody about it? Did you like go on the internet, YouTube? What was your how do you gather information when you're learning a new medium?
You know what? I learn best by learning from others. And so that's what I did. I learned from others. And then there's this really cool shop called The Factory. And they,
I just talked to him about an interview.
oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You know what? They were very welcoming. For me, I have gone to places where it's just you are unwelcomed. They know you don't know and they just rag on you for it. And that was not the case with them. You know, I walked in not knowing anything and I just asked them questions and they were very informative. And so now I feel comfortable, and that's extremely important for me when I go to places. Comfort. I need to go know that when I get there, I'm going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And they are a place where I can comfortably go and shop and not be, I don't know, shamed or berated or whatever it is that
About the questions you have.
mm-hmm.
That's me at AutoZone.
Yeah, me too.
I
Oh my
gotta,
god.
I gotta change the filter. What filter?
Yeah, because I like gym spaces. Sometimes they tend to be very intimidating,
Yeah.
especially if you're like on the overweight side,
Mm-hmm.
because people just look at you like, oh, what are you doing over here? Blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm trying to get healthier, but that's for another story.
Um, I don't know. I've seen people. I guess I've seen overweight people at like a gym. I've never really thought of it negatively. I've always kind of been like, "Well, good for them." I guess at the same time, you're recognizing that they're out of shape, but like that's why I'm there too. I'm at.
No, no, no.
I'm
I
just not.
mean,
I'm just not at that point where I have more traction to make. I guess.
yeah, no. I mean, these are like, I know I am not the thinnest or the healthiest. I could lose and work out and be stronger, and I'm like, I need to do that. But I'll get to that later. But sometimes when you start and you don't know, you get there. And I'm not saying everybody. There are some people who are just born assholes.
Yes. 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 I myself I would call myself pretty chill back and a nice person. But I think my biggest problem, my biggest problem is I have a bad like resting face or something. I think.
Really?
Yeah, like sometimes people, especially when I'm thinking, I frown. I think like I sit and I think, and then people are like, "Are you mad?" I'm like, "No, I'm just thinking. I'm thinking about something."
Yeah, yeah.
And so sometimes people think I'm mean. People have told me that before. Like a lot of people told me that. Even one of the guests told me that. She's like, "Man, I thought you were kind of mean, but like, you're pretty nice." I was like, "Yeah,
Oh my
I get it
goodness.
all the time." Um, the part that you said about the factory, I would agree. I definitely went there myself after taking the stencil class, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. Let me go buy some spray cans. I didn't know what colors I wanted. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know really what I was doing. I was just telling myself that if I didn't go buy the spray cans, I wasn't gonna do any art.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to go buy the spray cans and asked him a few questions about stuff, and he was pretty honest about like, hey man, if you want to practice, use these cans, and if you're taking it a little bit more serious, you can use these cans, and do you know about tips? It's like,
Yeah.
no. He
Same.
gave me a bag of tips. He's like, here, man, here's a sticker.
Exactly. That's the exact same experience I had. Like, I went in there not knowing a lot. I had questions, I had concerns. Or, like, when you need to get a hold of them on Instagram, you say, hey, I have this particular question. What if I did this and this? What would happen? Or, do you have something that can do something? And they're going to be honest with you. They'll be like, you know what? I don't know. Or, you know what? Yeah, try this. Or, you know what? Before you even do this, you need to do this, and this. And them helping me, that makes me a repeat customer with them. It's just that's how many art places should conduct themselves.
What are the different art, I guess, supply stores around here?
Well, I miss Beverly's, I'll be honest with you. There used to be Beverly's on 24th Street and F, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and where the Rosemary's is at. So I would just get my art supplies and then hit Rosemary's, have some ice cream, and then go home happy. But they're gone. There's Joann's, and that's a mixture of, like, I would say crafts, home decor, and fabrics.
Where's Joanne's?
It's on Ming, right across the street from the mall,
Okay, I think
where
I
the
know what you're
Marshalls
talking about.
Marshalls is at.
Yeah. Okay, I think I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So,
And then you've got Michael's. Michael's is always trustworthy. They've been there forever. They're reputable, good prices. Well, maybe not all the time. I used to go to them a lot, and then there's Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where I got these canvases. They were like half off.
Yeah. I mean, they're great for their prices, but I'm not a fan of them.
So, so there's also levels to brushes, canvases.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, and don't forget F&M Fabrics. That place is crazy. It's awesome though.
yes, this right.
It's
What
on
is it?
Niles.
Yes, right here down the street.
Yeah, that's for those who sew. I like to get my costumes from
When
there.
COVID hit, I bought my girlfriend a sewing machine,
Mm-hmm.
and because she wanted to make masks,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so we went there and we got masks there
Yeah.
or fabric there.
Speaking of COVID, I remember, I'm glad that everybody got into art and everything, but I remember how hard to get supplies because they were just completely sold out everywhere. I remember that distinctly. Like, I need to get a paintbrush or I need to get some paint. It's all gone. And I'm like, no, I have a project due like now. I'm like,
Speaking of that, that's a good topic. I've spoken to a few artists, and I love asking people questions. And what we're doing here is what I would do if I met you anywhere. I would just, if you want to keep talking to me, I'll keep talking to you. People told me that they weren't really. I guess I would say amongst the artists that I've met who do it for a living,
mm-hmm.
they seem kind of like a mess. But when it comes to their art, they're like, I had to learn time management.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to other stuff, they seem to be like kind of late to meetings and just typical entertainment or artists, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to their art, they said that they had to learn time management, especially when it came to the commission work and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's always a skill you've always had, or did you have to develop it?
I think it just fluctuates with me. Like I used to do. I was the cartoonist at the Rip Renegade a couple years back, like in the mid 2000s, like 2007 or so. And I could come out with a sketch, like just, a kick-ass sketch, exactly on the topics that they were talking about. And it would complement their newsletter. And I was like, bam, you need it in a week? Got it. There you go. And they would tell me like, oh yeah, no, we have others that take like months for them to get one drawing. I'm like, oh no, it's not that hard for me. But I feel that with some of my other paintings, depending on like how I feel, how enthusiastic I am with it, sometimes it'll take me a while to get, especially the mural works, because it is so physically taxing because you're out in the elements, fighting the heat, hoping it's not raining, hope it doesn't rain after you finish painting. And then it's just a big piece. It's a really big piece.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed too is the elements and sometimes the things outside of the canvas, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've had people talk to me about some of the artwork that goes on in town. You can see one here in the corner of my house. They have the boxes that they paint.
Oh yeah, I love those.
And people have done different projects and gone out and it's they're trying to clean up that bland look.
Yeah, thank goodness.
A lot of it's because of the economic situation in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these artists are like, yeah, I feel great, and I know I'm making this corner look a little nicer and prettier or whatever, putting my emotion into it. But it is scary. It is scary being out here.
Yeah, in certain parts of the neighborhood, but I mean, I haven't had anything negative yet. Where's the wood? Tap, 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 tap. I haven't had any kind of negative experiences. I mean, I have a baton taser if someone wants to square up. But luckily, no, I haven't had anything bad yet.
Do you think it's because you've taken precautions, just your own perspective on like what you need to do, or aware of your surroundings? Or?
Yeah, maybe. And also I think I kind of have your same problem where it's that resting face.
She's gonna fight back. I'm gonna leave her alone. She's gonna whoop me with a paint can.
I'm like, I ain't got nothing to lose. That's it. Make my day. No, I'm playing. Sometimes you just gotta let out that rage.
Yeah, well, I've had people, again, they've told me that very glad to get to work, very glad to be out there doing something,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they're kind of in these situations where they don't feel too safe. Um, and that's kind of scary for anybody out there
Yeah.
doing
Well,
art.
I would recommend that for anyone, if they can. I think the best times to operate would be early morning when you're not fighting the elements. Most people are not awake, anyways. And those who are, they're either taking their kids to work, they're working out, walking their dog. They're not looking for trouble.
Hmm.
So I find that it might be just the time that will help you.
Yeah, that individual or different people have told me that what they'll do is they'll either get security, they'll have a friend be with them,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll just again try to only work certain hours.
Mm-hmm.
I know for the people who do the bigger murals, they've told me they get security. They have
Oh.
security later if they're having to work later afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just have security,
That's
and it's
crazy.
mostly just because of the equipment that they have. There's
Mm-hmm.
just people randomly walking up, and sometimes they're just people walking their dog, and sometimes they're just people who aren't in reality, and so it's hard to you can't have a conversation with them. You can't really. You're just kind of, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of just need someone to stand there and just be like, hey man, you gotta move.
Yeah,
Go.
no, I've only had like one that was interesting. That was just like, but it ended up like, you know what? It ended on a good note.
Mm.
So I was painting a mural and I was minding my own business, and I keep my car close to me. I have my equipment in the trunk of my car, somewhere where I can see it. And this young man, he comes up to me, and I'm on my ladder. He's just looking at the artwork. And I don't remember much, but I just know that we were talking, and then all of a sudden, he just starts crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? He's just crying. I guess he was he was like in a really hard spot, a really rough time. And I'm just like, you know what? ¿Y sabes qué? Siéntate conmigo, sit down with me. I have something sweet to drink that always, lightens up your tears. And if you want someone to listen, I'll listen. And so he told me and everything. I said, you know what? I guess it was like he was getting kicked out, blah, 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 going through a rough spot. And I told him, I said, you know what? Things will get better now. Not right now, but in the future. You are young, you are resourceful, and you are able. As long as you think of that and you come up with a plan, your small goals will be accomplished. And then eventually, when you turn around, where you were at, it's not going to be there anymore. You're going to be somewhere else. Maybe somewhere better, hopefully. But just maybe write it out, clear it out, cry it now, but start thinking of steps, what you need to do later.
It's a voice of reason for him.
Mm-hmm. And then he calmed down, and then he was very thankful. He's like, I'm just glad that someone listened. I'm like, well, yeah, it sounded like you needed someone to listen to you. So, I mean, I'm not an expert. I might not give you what you need or hear, but at least I was at least there to help you a little bit, if anything. And so he messages me on Instagram later, like weeks later, and he's like, hey, I saw that you finished your painting. I found your Instagram, and I just want to say, hey, I'm doing a lot better, and thank you. I was like, oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. So then now I can be like, okay.
Yeah, that's hard to come across somebody and them share information that you're not really sure how to help them or what you can do other than to hear them out and try to keep it positive,
Mm-hmm.
give them a positive outcome or a different frame of mind that they're in. When I was in social work, I would come across it a lot where man, these kids had issues, man. They had problems, like real problems, and um, there weren't things I related to other than I understood how these came about and the consequences of it and the trauma and the types of trauma they were going to have, the
Mm-hmm.
issues they were going to have growing up. And so I was just try to learn about those things and try to help them, guide them through things. But, you know, it's hard when you realize that you're very limited in what you can do
Yeah, I mean,
for
the
somebody.
the only thing you can do, and that most people should try to do. I mean, sometimes it's very difficult, but just be a little kinder. Kindness goes a long way. So,
It does. It does, and it's. I wouldn't say it's hard to be kind, but it.
mm,
I think the. I think there's a lot of people taking advantage of it, and it makes it hard for people. And one thing that I've noticed since COVID is people asking for money, and you understand that people lost jobs. You understand that people went through a lot of hard times, and um, even though it feels like we're all out and about and we're not wearing masks, and people are a little bit more comfortable, or the people who've um, gotten back to comfortable to doing those things in that time, people have not found jobs, and so these people are like asking you for money, and you're like, you know, is this person struggling, or are they taking advantage of me?
true,
And
true.
I've talked to other people who, again, I think we talked about the inside. Well, we kind of talked about Instagram, but that's not necessarily your whole life or everything
Mm-hmm.
that's going on. So sometimes it looks a little bit more on the side of everything's going great all the time than it
Mm-hmm.
looks like, hey, in between these like high points of I wanted to share, I kind of had a shitty day,
Oh yeah.
or a bad week, and so um, I've noticed that there's people that I know that have a following, and they tell me that they get that a lot. People asking them for money, and lately,
Mm-hmm.
people coming out of the woodworks to ask you for money. I've had family member ask me for money. I've had childhood friends ask me for money, and I've had people who um, lost complete contact with,
That's crazy.
and they just start a conversation with me, and
Mm-hmm.
then it, it, it it doesn't take long. It
Yeah.
takes maybe like if you're going back and
Mm-hmm.
forth, maybe like 10 go back and forths
Mm-hmm.
before they hit you with I'm going through a hard time, and I just want. It's always hard too because they're talking about their kids and their family, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
fuck, man, like I've struggled. I remember going to college and eating the same food every day just to know that I had enough to get to class and take the bus and have gas and my rent, and like
Mm-hmm.
eating the same thing every day, every day, every day, and feeling poor. And obviously I didn't want to carry stuff, so I was sleeping on the floor. I was sleeping on the floor and stuff like that. So I didn't ever felt rich, but I always like knew that my bills were going to be paid, and
Mm-hmm.
I would be fine. I've always been responsible like that. um, and so when I meet people who are struggling, I feel for them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you do what you can. Obviously, you can't give them everything. Um, and I haven't had that. What I have had though is people try to scam me out of my artwork. Very
Okay, you got to
prevalent.
tell me about this. I never heard of this.
You know what? Yeah, it's something important. I mean, I know a bunch of artists know about it, but
Because you even mentioned contracts with your clients,
oh yeah, I
and
have
I have
contracts.
not had come across anybody tell me
I
they
had
have
to
to.
make a contract.
I had a friend who's a comedian, and I had a
Oh,
friend who's an artist,
yeah.
and so I kind of brought them together in a situation where we're all hanging out, and the comedian guy, and he wasn't joking, which is the sad part. He wanted a commissioned artwork,
Mhm.
and so he starts telling my friend, you know, I want this, and I want it to be like this, and I want, and then just elaborating really, really in detail of what he wanted, and the guy's just listening. He's like, all right, and then he listened to him, and then when he was done talking, he goes, all right, yeah, I'll do it for this much,
Mhm.
and he was like, all right, yeah, yeah, man, we'll talk about we'll talk about it later. He's like, okay, all right, cool. Um, I was really embarrassed because I knew my friend's means.
Mhm.
As much as he wanted to act like he was gonna buy, it's possible that he probably did not expect him to like. He thought maybe it was gonna be like $40 or something, or 60.
Yeah.
Because if it was over $100, I was not expecting this person to pay for it.
Mhm.
So not even like $50.
Yeah, that's
So I
another.
was very embarrassed, very embarrassed. But the guy, I could tell he just went through it, and I was like the whole time I was embarrassed, but
Mhm.
he was just like boom, 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 and he just gave him a price. I think he knew he'd done this so many times. And he goes,
Mhm.
once I shoot the price, I'll know when he's serious or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And that's very true. I think so. And that's just me because I'm the artist and I'm quoting my prices. For me, I don't like it when people I tell them one price because I have price brackets
mhm.
and they want to go lower than that. And then I tell them I'm sorry, because it's my time, my effort, my materials, my wear and tear of my tools. And so,
Just haggling.
I mean, that's my value. And they're like, well, no, that's too expensive. Can't you go less? And it's just like really low numbers. And I'm like, no, respectfully, I have to decline. I have to decline. I'm sorry. This thing keeps falling off me.
Oh, I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it might be too loose. You can kind of tighten. We'll figure it out in a little bit during the break. Um, so I guess then my last question is before we break is do you haggle anywhere else you go yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, and then how does that correlate with yourself? Like you're like, oh, I don't like it when people haggle about my art, and like, do you feel that the lady selling you, you know, limones or your groceries, like if you try to haggle her, do you feel like, oh man, I wonder if she has the same thought I have? Or it's like, come on, lady, man, I'm trying to sell these things.
Yeah, it could be very much that's the same thought process, but the difference is I might get lucky, I might not get lucky. You know, I have, just like that person has every right to try to haggle with me. I can say no. That person I'm haggling with, they could say no.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like
you're just stern about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people are a little more flexible, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I guess for me, it's I flow through the world fluidly.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, sometimes I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. Others like, yeah. I don't have like a playbook of how I'm going to live my life. Is if an opportunity presents itself, you know, I might approach it differently. Yeah. So with haggling, it's more like the swap meet, remate, I mean, stuff like that. I'm not going to go to a Gucci store and be like, you know, hey, are you selling this for $1,000? I'll take it for 500, man. 500. Best offer. No, I'm not going to do I know when and where.
Now, if it worked, it'd be something else.
And if it worked for him, then it'll be like, dude, that's all you need to do. You know, just haggle your life away. Just do it.
Just mention a sad story and why you need this purse. All right, we'll go ahead and take a break because I do want to talk about your turtle.
Oh, okay, cool.
So tell me about your turtle.
So I have a African sulcata. He is 9 years old. He just turned 9 in August. In fact, we share the same birthday. And what I like to do is I'll have my cake and then I'll make him a watermelon cake. So it's just a watermelon cut in half. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of fruits. Like his favorite fruits are tunas, which is cactus fruit, peeled, mm-hmm. bananas, watermelon. He goes crazy for banana. So when I give it to him, he just lights up and he's like, oh, it's all mine.
Now, do you have to like, he won't eat the peel?
He can eat through the peel. But he's a particular tortoise, so he's picky. So I have to peel the banana, peel the watermelon. I don't really do that with the watermelon. I'll just leave I'll cut it like a normal person, and he'll go up to the rind and eat the white, and then he'll stop. But he can munch right through that.
That's funny. You say your tortoise is kind of fancy. My dog, well, one passed away, but the other one still likes like bananas and stuff. But I don't know if it's like the texture of it. Mm-hmm. But they don't like to chew on it. So really? I have to like mash it for them, mm-hmm. or cut it into really small pieces where they could just swallow it.
It could be maybe that it gets stuck in the roof of their mouth.
I don't know. I've never really observed them.
Or that's their particular way. He's like, I don't do pieces. I do it mashed.
Oh no, yeah, my dogs are for a lot of the stuff that they like eating, they won't eat it in its whole piece. Like, mm-hmm. they won't eat like a strawberry in its whole piece.
Oh, really?
You have to cut it into smaller stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that they'll like gobble down is like meat.
Of course.
Yeah, and tortillas. Oh my! Oh, now I feel bad. I never recorded it. I wanted to record my dog eating a tortilla. Mm-hmm. Oh, that thing it looks insane. it just eat it so fast. I was like, we had to tell her, like, Latte, you're gonna choke, man. You gotta stop.
Yeah.
So your tortoise, we were talking about it earlier, where I actually was following your tortoise for like the longest time. I just thought it was the most curious thing. And then even you, I thought, who does this? This is the funniest person ever. Who
well, that's me.
And I remember, and you had a wagon for your tortoise as well?
Yeah, my tortoise mobile. It got to be where because I take him to the park. I take him to the park. I have found that when I do, he just it's just much happier. Like I can see they don't make sounds or anything, but body language, their eyes, their coloring, everything was telling me that he looks so much happier. My favorite thing is just to observe him, tend to him, because it's something cool. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
walking dinosaur. I mean, when I was a little kid, I wanted a dinosaur so bad. I never honestly thought I was gonna own a tortoise. I'm a cat person, so I've always had cats all my life. So
Yeah.
I know them, but it was my husband. uh, he I don't know. We were going to the Pomona reptile show,
Mm-hmm.
and we were just going to look, just to look at all the cool reptiles and everything. It was a fun event, and we were there, and we happened to see a tortoise, about the size of a little itty bitty golf ball,
Mm-hmm.
and he just melted. My husband looked at him. He just melted, and he was like, "I really like him," and I'm like, "Okay." I would not recommend buying an animal without doing your research first. Um, Unfortunately, we didn't do that. I'm sorry. But as soon as I got him, I started reading up on everything. And surprisingly, to my horror, there's not a lot of reliable information
Mm-hmm.
out there, especially in books. Um, so I ended up getting a lot of my information from um, basically college level herpetology textbooks, and just breaking down that I understand this animal's cold blooded. I understand that their body is not the same as a warm blooded individual, animal. And so they require special needs. So lighting is an issue, temperature is an issue, diet is an issue, moisture is an issue. And so I pulled from all of that, and then it just got to a point where, okay, now I need to learn about plants and the ratios so that way he grows healthy. And yeah, it's a real fun trip.
Did did you go to higher education? Did you go
I
to college?
I took a little bit of college in my earlier years, like early 2000s and stuff like that, but I have a certificate in digital arts.
The reason I asked that is because just in the conversation we've been having, there's been a lot of situations where you just kind of didn't know something, so you just went to go figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I don't know if I wouldn't be able to think back in my mind of how long I've been doing it, but I know in school I built up the habit that everything is just a matter of research,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and if there is not much on it, then you're just the person leading the research, and so all you do is make notes and reach out to certain people, and
Oh yeah.
there's that whole other process of the new stuff, but everything just seems to be a matter of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, with the tortoise, it was a matter of just getting a whole bunch of knowledge, like when it came to food and really figuring out what is edible and what is toxic. Um, there's a website called the Tortoise Table. It's a UK site,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a list of edible plants that the tortoise can eat and the unedible ones. And then if you're not sure, because you have to know the Latin names sometimes, you can email them and say, because not like, for example, roses.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of roses are edible. From the flower is edible, the leaves are edible. The stems, you shouldn't feed them that because they get the thorns and it's really tough. They're not going to pick it, but not all roses are edible. Some are not.
Okay.
Some are like there's a little bit of toxic. So there's like
Is
highly.
there a trait
Hmm?
Is there a trait that they have that you can distinguish, like which species you shouldn't give them, like a
Mm,
color, a look, a
n-
smell?
no, no. A lot. So many of the flowers and plants that we have now that we live around are like hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not 100% sure, just don't. Um, Luckily, my mother, she planted in our backyard. It's just nothing but roses in the backyard. So it ended up just being a tortoise haven backyard for us. She didn't plant anything that was toxic. Um, and so it works out perfectly because I have like cinder block flower beds so he doesn't get into the roses and destroy them. And he has the grass. We have shade. And so when I'm out there pulling weeds, he's like my little garden helper. I'm pulling out weeds because I don't spray pesticides or herbicides because he's living there. And he's right behind me. I pull out a weed, I drop it, he eats it. I have my music on, I go clip some roses, I give it to them, I have some for the bouquet, and I leave some in the garden. And it works out really cool. Like there's days where he and I are in the backyard doing all of this stuff. And because I don't spray herbicides and pesticides, I've got hummingbirds, bees, wasps, like big old beetles with crazy colors just come into my backyard. I got dragonflies, butterflies. Now I got lizards too. I'm like, ooh, this is cool.
My dogs love lizards. They love chasing lizards, I should
Yeah.
say.
Um.
Um, so we talked about your tortoise, which again I'm a big fan of. I've even shared with other people that your tortoise has an IG, um, which I shouldn't be too surprised because there's so many people that have this for their dogs. But I guess just the tortoise kind of threw me off. Have you come across tortoise owners?
Oh yeah. There is a big IG community of tortoise people. For example, I'm friends with some that are in Great Britain, um, other parts of Europe, parts of California. There's a tortoise that I love. Her name is Charlemagne, and it goes tortoise tortoise 90210. She's from Beverly Hills, and she's like I think 22, 25 now. Um, the one in Great Britain, there are different species of tortoise, and the owner's really cool. She has two little Russian tortoises named Sammy and Harry, and they're funny. And then there's another one, I think, I'm not 100% sure, like either Sweden or something. Her tortoise's name is Willow, and it's like a leopard tortoise. Gorgeous, gorgeous. And everybody's really, really nice. So with Bijou, I, I was just basically, honestly, I was taking way too many photos, way too many videos of him, and it was overtaking my personal IG because I have my personal, my art, and now I had Bijou, and Bijou was my second IG account, and then I had my art account. So I was working on that one first before I did my art one.
So when you have a dog, people say that the dog takes on the owner's personality.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's true for tortoises as well? Or is he just completely his own thing?
He's his own thing. I am very grateful that I have a very well behaved tortoise. I have heard stories that tortoises, are they're aggressive. They
Wow,
dig
bullies.
holes. Um, they can dig a hole right through your home, given enough time. So they can go through cinder block, concrete, drywall.
What are they using? Their
They
hands or
they got time. A lot of people say that the biggest personality
slow
with
and steady, all
it,
that, right?
no,
Wow.
that's a complete lie.
No.
It's tenacity.
Oh.
It's tenacity. If he believes he can get there, he will get there. All he needs is time. That's all he needs. But mine,
I never had anybody put it like that. Tenacity.
yeah, it's tenacity. I can't explain it any other way. And
You just blew my mind. I'm gonna keep that in my. I'm gonna register that.
yeah, and I love him so much because even though he doesn't say anything, it almost feels like sometimes it's just full on conversations. Like I can tell when he's bored, I can tell when he's hungry. Funny story, my husband and I, We were in the living room and it was a hot day, so we brought him inside because it's really, really hot. And we cut a watermelon. I didn't think that he saw us. And so we were eating two watermelons, in their watermelon bowls and whatever. We're just scooping it out, watching television. And I feel somebody staring at me. I'm just like, what? And I look down, and in the corner, he pushed the couches apart, sat there, looked at both of us, and said, "Where's my piece?" So we had to like scope out. Here you go. Like, there you go. And he was sitting there watching television with us. We're just like trying to keep cool.
My the dog that passed away, Latte. She was a
I love that
red-nosed pit
name.
bull. Yeah, we came up with it because when we got her, we were trying to think of something, and I was like, she reminds me of a latte, like, just barely put the cream in there.
Mm-hmm.
She had this like white thing that went across her body.
Oh, that's cute.
She had a personality where in the morning I would get up to let her out,
Mm-hmm.
and I get up to let her out, and then I turn on a light, and she would just like sigh, like turn like she was mad. I turned the light on.
Like, it's too early.
Yeah, and I would be like, what the heck is wrong with this stuff? They'll sigh. Or my favorite is when they don't want to eat what you gave them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like gave them something and they put it in their mouth and then they just drop it and then they look back at you, okay, like, what's next?
Yeah,
Let me try the next thing.
that's him and kale.
Okay, all right.
He won't do kale. He's like, nope. Mm-mm. He will not do kale. What is it? So it's funny to give him all these different kinds of foods because I have to make sure that his food is, it's got a variety of different substrates and stuff. I mean, his grass is mainly what he eats because if I give him too much fruit, he'll get pyramiding, and I don't want that. So he's nice and round to the best ability that I can make him.
Also, the shell will actually distort if they don't have a good diet.
Yeah, and since their shell is fused to their spine, it affects their rib cage, their pelvis, their spinal cord, everything. So it's really important that their nutrition and the lighting is so important.
Wow.
You can tell when a tortoise is looking really bad by all of that. The coloring, their behavior, the shape of the shell. They just look really bad, and you're like, "Ooh, someone didn't take care of them."
You gave me a tip about the painting I had there. I was telling you I was looking to get it glossed.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a few things that you've learned about deterioration from the elements, and different things that someone can do when they're, again, getting the commission, or they know where their art's going to go, things that they should consider or be aware of.
Yeah, actually, so I guess Bijou does influence a lot of my art. I say often that he is my muse. I have plenty of murals that he is in. But one of the aspects of keeping a tortoise or a reptile is light spectrum. So something to consider in your paintings if you're going to do a painting that's going to be outside,
Okay.
that anything in the reds, purples, pinks, basically the warm tones, if you put it in direct sunlight, over a period of time, it'll deteriorate. And it's just the light spectrum, the UV light spectrums that we just are surrounded by. And so those are the first to degrade. And so when I have clients, because I've had clients who will come up to me and they'll show me a location, and we'll talk it out, and I'll get what they want and everything, and then I'll express some concerns. I'm like, hey, I like your idea, I really do, but the location that you have, I notice, because I have to pay attention to the sun and when the shadows and when the light hits it. I'm like, I notice that you get the hardest part of the sun blasting that wall. I would not recommend those colors. I can create something else that will survive the elements. If it's more shady, then I'm like, okay, I'm a bit more freer with my colors.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's something like full sun at the end of the day, 113-degree weather here in Bakersfield, that painting of reds and pinks is not going to survive.
Yeah.
You would have to coat it with something special. I believe that they sell, and I haven't had to use it, but I have seen it with another artist on YouTube. It's basically a UV anti graffiti coating
Okay.
that you put it on there, and that'll protect your outdoor work paints. But you have to be real careful because I heard that I was reading it, and while he was explaining, he was saying that if you put it on when it's really cold or it's really hot, it could destroy your painting. And you have to be really careful because it happened to another artist that I was watching on YouTube. I don't recall the name. I just know that he was in Europe and he had this beautiful mural in his studio, and he went to coat it, and it was destroyed. And he said, I've always used this. I don't know what happened. He says, I can only think that maybe it was the moisture or the temperature. And I'm like, ooh, you got to be real careful with those top coats.
And you know, sometimes those things are on the instructions.
Yeah.
You know, we just don't really think about what the temperature in my room is and what it's required for the whatever I'm going to use.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend who, he was growing pot in his backyard.
Oh my God.
He was growing pot in his backyard, and he was struggling to grow his crop, I guess.
Oh.
And so he asked me because when I was in college, I came across. Long story short, my stepdad died of cancer.
Okay.
And one of the things that he was telling me was recommended to him was marijuana.
Uh-huh.
And he didn't want to take it because of the cognitive. I'm like, you're dying. You know, this isn't gonna bring you back. This is for you to like soothe you while you pass away. But he didn't want to have like that perception that he was like a pothead, or even I guess he was just thinking he was gonna live, and so he didn't want to be like, oh, it's gonna lead to what do they call it, the gateway drug. That's what they call it, the gateway drug.
Yeah.
And so, which is hard to believe, but he's an older person, so you know the way they think about things is a little bit different. And so when I got into college, I came across an organization, and so I started the organization. It was called Normal,
Mm-hmm.
at that campus. And so I met different people through that. And in the process of advocating for medical marijuana and the legalization of marijuana, I wanted to learn how to cultivate. So I learned. So I grew like 2-3 plants in my house. I grew one. I kind of learned how a little bit. I read some books about it. Did research about it. Practically, it's no different than growing tomatoes,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I thought was crazy because I was like, tomatoes, oh yeah, well it just needs plant and needs nutrition, so why wouldn't it match some other random plant? Well, this guy was asking me questions because he knew I had cultivated before, and so I was trying to explain to him, like, you know, there's this process and that process, and then you recognize it by looking at the plant. And so while I was explaining all these things to him, you could tell it was just going in one ear and out the other. So I think a season goes.
He just wanted like a magic trick.
Yeah, he wanted me to tell him, you know, snap your finger, you know,
Yeah.
something like that. But no, it's like there's these steps of a vegetative state and growth and flowering stages, and like you have, once you grasp those, then you know what to give it. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
It's the same thing with tortoises. Trust me.
and so I tell him, you know, do these things, and so he doesn't listen. And I think later on, I think his next batch of crop that he was gonna try to grow, same thing. I think it was like 3 or 4 times that.
Oh, really?
He tried stuff and it just wasn't working for him. And then one day I go by his house and I see he has some really big, nice plants.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey man, you really turned it around. I was like, what did you do different?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I read the instructions.
Oh my goodness. But
like,
isn't it like them that, you know, my husband, when he builds something or makes something, he won't read the instructions. I'm like, dude, the instructions, like, read it. He's like, no, I got this. Don't worry. I got this.
When I build stuff that I buy for the house or something that I have to build, I lay out everything.
Mm-hmm.
I put all the tools, and then I follow each step.
Mm-hmm. No, not mine. Mine, he's like, I know what I'm doing. Don't worry. I'm like, okay, you break it, you're gonna buy me another one, and I'm gonna pick something nicer.
What I've learned is not to do that, because when I get confident, I just start building.
Mm-hmm.
Then it doesn't take long for when I have to put 2 parts together that I realize that like the piece was upside down or facing the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
or the wrong piece to hold it. I was just like, so I got to start over. So you were mentioning about the elements on the outside, but you also said maybe not glossing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was kind of, I guess in my mind, I'm like, that's how you present art to someone is you finish your art, you put that varnish or that gloss, whatever you want. I know there's different ways to call it,
You
and
don't have to. I would have to say that for me to make the painting more presentable is when you get your canvas, the white, if it's a white canvas, you should cover that up. Even if it's white paint, as
mm-hmm.
long as that is covered, it just looks more presentable. But as far as a varnish, that's just an option because as long as it's not tempera, because tempera will, is temporary. That's why it's called tempera. Um, Tempera will crack and fade and deteriorate. But acrylics usually have a latex component to them, so that way it's like a plastic, so it'll stay.
Okay.
And you don't really need a varnish or cover. You can. It's more added protector or to give it a finish, meaning eggshell, flat, matte, or gloss, high gloss.
What about? Sorry. Sometimes I'm trying to ask something, and it's like five, seven questions.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have time to ask those questions. When someone buys your art, what's the presentation? And that kind of goes back to like me thinking that you're supposed to varnish it.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that other people have told me that when they sell their art, it's framing it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just give them the canvas; they get it framed
Mm-hmm.
to sell it.
It depends. So I typically, very rarely, I don't think I've ever done it. I will not sell a painting for sale on the flat canvases,
Okay.
the one that's wrapped around something like a flat backing.
Mm-hmm.
I will not sell those. Those are for practice, or that's how I view it. Um, I like to do the wraparounds. So personally, like in my gallery settings, I will sell it at the 2 inch thickness or the inch thickness ones that says gallery wrap. And I like to paint all the way around. I don't like to leave a white border.
Mm-hmm.
It just, for me, it looks cleaner, more presentable. And another thing that I'm very particular about in my paintings is that when you look at it, the paint is fully saturated on the canvas. So it's not like when you go up to it, there's a coat of, I don't know, red or blue, and then you can still see the canvas through it. Because you can do an opaque
Mm-hmm.
and it looks very transparent, and then you just see the canvas behind. I don't like it's just me because it drives me nuts. So I like to make sure that it's fully painted through. If I'm going to do layers, then the first layer has to be fully saturated, and then I'll just go build up.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And I start exploring new techniques too.
And are these concepts just things that you kind of built on your own, or are they again things that you observe by other people turning in their art or selling their art?
Um, you know what? I was fortunate enough to have an art teacher who took great interest in me and my development in artwork. Her name was Miss Reynolds,
Mm-hmm.
from Ridgeview High School. And I have very fond memories of her. And I remember she was very hard with me with my works. Like, you know, we had some really good critique sessions about my artwork. She would look at it, and all of it was very constructive. You know, she never ripped me down or anything. No, it was just, she would be hard, and she's like, here is why. You don't have to, but here is why. And that I feel helped me be a stronger painter because I've always been good at painting, but I didn't have the technical ability until I started, you know, going to classes and stuff. But with her, it just really, I loved what she was saying. I loved how she taught it, and I loved her passion for the art.
She definitely incubated um,
Mm-hmm.
an encouragement and positivity for art.
Yeah, I guess with her, she set my standards for how I present my artwork. I mean, I have lots of influence in other people that I've learned from, but with her, there was this level of standard that I really, really liked, and I still use to this day.
Yeah, I don't think I had an art teacher, but I just thought he was goofy. He but I respected him because people would talk about him and they
Mm-hmm.
would say like really interesting things. They would kind of make fun of him, but I was able to connect the dots and what was going on. And so they would make fun of him because he would get out of the passenger seat of his car. And so a lot of people would like say how weird he was. Like he's so
Mm-hmm.
weird. He's always carrying markers, and he's like a little scrawny dude. And um, I kind of knew that he bought supplies for the class,
Mm-hmm.
and so I kind of knew like, oh, this guy like takes art so serious that he would, you know, rather get out of the passenger car of his vehicle than to get that fixed. He'd rather go buy some markers for everybody, and
Oh
whether we
yeah.
appreciate him or not, he has them there for him. But the reason I thought he was goofy because he would always say, he's like, "You're a genius, you're a genius,"
Mm-hmm.
and so like you'd be painting, he's like, "Oh man, you're a genius, yeah, 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 man." He'd encourage you about whatever you're painting,
Mm-hmm.
and I would make fun of him because I was like, "If I'm a genius, why I got a B minus?"
He's like, you're a genius, but not a true genius yet. Hold on, slow down. Gotta deflate that ego just a little bit. Reel it back.
But I remember he was amazing. I remember he had almost like a squirrel that he was rolling,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a dragon, and he was just sitting there coloring it in, doing that part, and then the whole class we'd all be messing around doing it, and he'd just be there painting his thing, doing his
Mm-hmm.
thing. I forget his name, but I never had a relationship with an instructor, art teacher. I've taken art classes as an elective, or
Mm-hmm.
even in college. Really, I've always enjoyed art, and I've always tried to, I guess, break off and be good at it. But
Yeah.
I've never committed enough time to get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only person would say would be Brandon and Deidre are like the only teachers I've had. Um, and Deidre, she's pretty funny. She gave me this one criticism one time, and it wasn't even criticism. She just didn't know what I made, and so they asked us to volunteer and do yarn on. There's this train station that they're trying to save, or Andre Gonzalez was trying to save, and so they were putting in these yarn on the chain link fence, and so they're like, yeah, just grab some yarn and make something. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
all right. I'll make a flower. This is kind of easy to make.
Mm-hmm.
So I made this flower, and I didn't do it petals. I just kind of like more like a ray coming out. And then I think Tisha walked back. She goes, "That's a beautiful windmill."
Oh man, no, no. It's so embarrassing when you are looking at someone and they're looking at their artwork, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a beautiful windmill. And you're like, and then they turn, no, it was supposed to be a flower. Oh shit, my bad.
And so it was kind of a running joke with her. So now anytime she asks me what I'm making, so like we'll have the art class, and then I'll do a class with Brandon, or I'll do a class with her. But sometimes if I'm with Brandon, she'll come by. She'll be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm just making windmills and shit."
That's funny.
Have you come across anybody talking about your art? Like obviously they might not know who the artist is, right? They're at a gallery and they're just admiring something. Have you ever gone to a gallery and seen someone like observe your art, or talk about your art?
Um, I've had a couple experiences. So going back to Miss Reynolds, it was like just like maybe a few weeks or a few months before we had to graduate because it was my senior year, and she decided to make an art show. And I put up a collage painting of a girl with her arm extended up and out. And I got these collages, and I don't know where I got it, but it was from the National Geographic. So basically, one of her breasts was like red,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one was like a cut out of a lake, and it kind of just transformed. I didn't realize it at the time. It was just basically a feeling of music. That was the theme. So I found some pictures of viruses because they looked interesting because they were like bubbles and stuff like, and they were windy. So I thought music. Well, I had stepped away from the gallery, and then I'm walking in, and there's this woman just sobbing in front of my painting, and I'm like 17. I'm like, what did I do? Like, did I do something that made me trouble? And my mom is like, no, it's okay, mija. And then the teacher's like, no, it's okay. She saw something different. She said she was battling breast cancer. And she says she remembers like the infected tissue being hot, and in the x-ray that's what it looked like, and that she had to basically cut out the breast. And she says, yeah, I may have that hole, but it was healed and that I was getting better. And she says, the way you transitioned everything, I was like, I didn't look at it that way. That was not my intent, but I'm glad that you saw something that hit you in that manner that makes you cry. And so I'm noticing that a lot of my paintings are starting to do that. A lot of them are.
Do you
I
do
don't.
you ever? So I know we've talked about your art and the feeling that you put into the art. Um, when you hear someone, if someone was to talk about your art and they interpret it, oh, so she's using black because black represents, the apartheid, and like, do you go like no, or do you go like, oh, that's just what he sees or she sees?
I've never had anybody associate my
Go.
artwork with political means. So I haven't crossed that bridge yet. When I do, I'll let you know. Um, but when they view it differently on an emotional level, or they see something different, it's interesting to hear it. Because I was just like, huh. Because especially that event, I had interpreted music because I was just listening to music. Because when I do my paintings, my work, I listen to music. I have to listen to music because you got to have that state of mind, that feeling, and then you just work from there. So for her to do that, I was like, oh, and it just made the painting so much more profound. I was like, oh, okay, it's not just me listening to music. It hits someone different in a very serious manner. I was like, oh shoot.
I wonder if that's the feeling that I get from comedy, in that yeah, you make people laugh and so you have a
Mm-hmm.
good time, but there's people who they I don't even know what it is. Maybe they're weird, or maybe I'm weird. I don't know, but
Aren't we all? It's better that we are.
yeah, it's better that we're all kind of weird. But
Yeah.
they just have this. They want to tell you how funny you were, or they just want to let you know how happy they were with
Mm-hmm.
the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And and some people think of it as like, oh, picture a picture, or just recognition of something you did. That was your whole intention was to make that person laugh. But there's just some jokes that I think I was talking to a comedian the other day, and I told him he's been doing it for much longer,
Mm-hmm.
and I told him, like, sometimes I'll tell a joke, and people will laugh, but I know the joke could be better, or it didn't have to be as dirty as it was, you know. Um, but people still laugh,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell them, like, sometimes I feel like I'm going for like low hanging fruit. I'm not really trying, because as long as they laughed, that's all that matters, right? Um, and so I criticized myself that way, and he said, like, no, man, it's all just it's all part of that journey and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would you say you're very critical of yourself, your art?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I guess I hate to say this. I strive for perfection. You and I had that conversation where it's really hard to know when to stop, when to say that painting is done. You do not need to add anything else to it. You're like, is it enough, or am I shorting myself?
And I think that's kind of where I'm hitting on with the joke. Is the joke enough? Can it be better?
Mm.
Am I gonna be proud of it 10 years from now, or am I gonna be ashamed of it?
And that's interesting that you say that, because I didn't think about that regarding comedy. I always thought that you're just saying it's not like permanently there, because it's just one word and then it just goes, and then another word and it just goes. And I never thought that that's how you also felt when it comes to comedy. That, am I just doing low hanging fruit, or am I doing too much? When is it just right? And that's pretty cool to think about. I was like, oh, so that's real eye opening for me.
There's definitely that part, and then there's the part of like I said, I just find it kind of weird when people come up to me and they're like, "That was so funny," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, that wasn't that the point of what I was trying to do?" But then I'm surprised that someone comes back and tells you, like, how much it meant to them, and even like I said, there's certain jokes that I would consider them like a filler,
Mhm.
so like something to say in between another joke that I'm more
Mhm.
proud of. But they're telling you how great it is. Kind of feels pretty good. Um, but then I'm like, well, it wasn't the best joke. But then they're
Mm.
still laughing at it and they still enjoyed it. So like, what's more important? And it's just shocking how important it is for them to let you know that they enjoyed the show,
Mhm.
and then also telling you why they enjoyed the joke. Because if it's a bad, dirty joke, then it's like, why are you telling me this? This is like crazy. Like,
Sometimes it's TMI.
oh, a lot. I did a show. So I think probably like the last show I did was like last October, because I took a break.
Uh
I
huh.
was because of my job,
Mhm.
and so I was only doing like gigs here and there, and I would usually do old material because I wasn't practicing.
Yeah.
So I did this show, and I went out there, and a guy and his wife met me outside. I stepped outside, which I
Mhm.
usually do because I don't drink and I don't smoke before I go up. But afterwards, I'll have like a shot or something, or someone buys me a drink. But I stepped outside for some air,
Mhm.
and the wife is like, "You were so funny," and I can't exactly remember. It had to do with like sex or something, a joke I made about it, and then they started laughing, and I think the joke had to do with like cheating or something as well, and so they came over and just started telling me about how they related to the joke, and then they started talking about their infidelity in front of me.
What?
Yeah, I haven't done the joke, and I said it's been a year, so I can't remember exactly which joke it was, and I can't
Mhm.
remember what infidelity joke I made, but I know it had to do with that. Maybe I
Mhm.
just said something on the spot, but she and him start going back, and she talks about how he cheated on her, and then they start, but they're laughing about it, and he goes, "Well, you fucking cheated on me too." She goes, "Yeah, but he had money." You cheated with some broke bitches. So I was just like, oh my god.
Dang.
But they were like friends now or something, and so they were
Yeah.
just they just related to that joke. And to me, I was just kind of like, well, I wasn't expecting that. I just thought, hey,
Yeah.
that was funny. But they were like, got into detail. They started having what looked like an argument, but they were
Mhm.
just kind of going back and forth
Oh,
laughing
just
about it.
friendly banter, right?
Yeah, but I get that. I get that. Sometimes they're drunk. The drunk people, it's never fun. It's always annoying.
Oh,
But the
is it?
sober people are fun. The sober people
Okay.
are very enjoyable.
That's that's
The
pretty
drunk people are
cool.
nice too, but they're too touchy,
Mhm.
or just God, again, it's kind of awkward. It's kind of awkward sometimes because the people are like, yeah, come drink with us, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know you, and I'm in a town I've never been before.
Mhm.
Um,
That's pretty cool. It's kind of like how in social media we open up a very intimate window of artists, for planning, sketching, redoing, and then ultimately finishing. It's cool to hear what you're saying about comedy, because I always, I only see that 1 hour special. I don't think about how people come up to you afterwards, and that the interactions, depending on if they're sober or drunk, how that's different. And that you're right, you are in a strange town, you don't know anybody there, and sometimes it might be a little bit uncomfortable to know that although they mean well, they may not realize it, or they're not aware of it because they're inebriated, that touching you is just like, no, please don't.
the touching is for me a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I just don't want to be touched by people.
I see.
It's just yeah, I don't know. It's just so many things can happen when someone's too close to you,
Mm-hmm.
and I think when people try to get close, I think in the comedy part, like I understand why they're
Mm-hmm.
talking to me, so you're kind of like okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it gets to the point where um, the, they're not getting social cues because
Mm-hmm.
they're intoxicated, so they're not getting the social cues of like, hey, I'm glad to take a picture. I'm glad. No, I don't get many of those, but I'm glad to talk to you, or I'm glad to talk, riff a little bit about the joke that you enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine, but I think I gotta go. You
Yeah,
know,
because I mean, you never know. I mean, you want to have to believe that most people have really good intentions, but sometimes not everybody does. I mean, there's what, like 7 billion people, 6 billion people. It's it's an entire spectrum of personalities and wavelengths that people are on, and so you never know.
And then you're sober yourself, so
Mm-hmm.
your perspective of it is a little bit different, and it does get a little weird because there's people who want to hang out and you don't necessarily want to hang out with them, or maybe it's not really appropriate because they're like a female and the female is just like anybody else, just hey, I liked your joke, can I buy you a drink, and I hang out,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like it doesn't look right because I'm in a relationship.
Yeah.
Also, and I don't, but at the same time, I don't want to be rude and
Mm-hmm.
then have a misconception from this person that I'm like stuck up or something. So it's like, okay, how do I balance it?
Yeah.
But you do get some people who just they're loud, they're intoxicated. The cliche is you should write a joke about this. We'll touch on one little thing and then we'll go through the list real quick
Mm-hmm.
on the outro. Um, is there a theme you're not wanting to do that you're not really interested in, or a theme that you are interested in working on? I know you just did the Life is a Carnival,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was a series you said of that's all. I don't know what to say, but all the skeletons.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I generalized things so badly. Um, so that's one theme, and I've noticed a black cat in your art lately. I think it was you did like 4 or 5 of them
Yeah, I
recently.
did 5 of them. A funny story behind those. Those aren't actually black cats. I have 4 cats, and the models are my 2 boy cats,
Uh-huh.
Bubu Lubu, aka Bubu, and Lumiere, aka Lumi. Bubu Lubu's a gray cat, and Lumiere is a white cat with bicolors eyes. Um, I love black cats. My cat that I grew up with was a long-haired black cat named Chiquillo. So I love black cats. And I just wanted to do cats again because it's been a while since I painted cats. I've been doing a lot of reptiles and skeletons. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to what I really like. That's why I said this year I'm taking it back to where I'm painting whatever I want, how I want it. And so I was like, I don't want to really get some references off the internet. I have references right here laying on the ground trying to keep cool. And so with those paintings, I wanted to catch like the silly parts because there's Boobaloo laying down, kind of like double chinning it, just looking at me. He's like, I'm full, but I could have like another piece of canned food, please. Thanks. Or he's laying there and like, he looks really, really bored. And that's what I wanted to capture.
I thought you were gonna say that those were like another animal, and I was like, I could have swore they were cats. My bad. Like,
No,
so sorry. I thought
no,
they were
no,
cats.
no. No, the models are of my very own cats and their personalities. Like Twilight is Lumiere, so he's very nosy. He likes to get into things. He's destructive, and I love him, but he's so destructive. He destroyed my um, Prismacolor carrying case. He didn't destroy the pencils, thank goodness, but he destroyed the case, so I have to get a new one. I can't leave paintbrushes around him. He destroyed my Deco Color pens. Like, he bit through the metal. Ink all over the floor. I had to like scrub everything. So I had to keep my studio away from him, and he tries to get in there. But I know when he's in there because he starts squeaking,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, Lemire, out. I'm sorry.
So in this conversations, you paint your animals a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you own a beta fish?
When I was really, really young, but no, I do not.
And that is a beta fish that
Yeah,
you've been
that's a
painting.
beta. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a beta
See,
fish.
that's another example. I met a foster youth who was in the stages of becoming obsessed with betas.
Oh,
She
really?
wanted betas. She not only wanted betas, she wanted to breed betas.
Really?
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
which I don't even know how you start that. And then my conversation with her was the way I look at life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you want to go to the library? We'll go to the library.
Heck yeah.
You know?
I
I mean, now you
mean,
can do internet, but
I
whatever.
mean,
I'm
it's
old.
so interesting to meet different people and the things that they're interested, like, because you never know, like, that girl who wants to do betas. Hopefully, she did do it. And hopefully, yeah, there's new
Hopefully.
vision from her. But yeah, the communities are vast and numerous for all those kinds of. Like, there was this one guy that I met. He was a big koi enthusiast, and he told me the importance of kois and why they range in the millions or in the thousands and why. And certain, I was like, oh, cool. I mean, I didn't go in depth with him, but whatever he told me was interesting. I was just like, tell me more. Yeah, I like that.
So is there Any themes again that you stay away from, or themes that you are more working on or
I'll
wanting
be
to
honest
be?
with you, I'm not crazy about recreating, um, I don't know how to say it. So, like Disney characters,
Okay.
that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of that.
And it's probably hard to sell it too, right?
Well, yeah, because then there's just so much.
Copyright
There,
stuff.
yeah, there's so much red tape.
Have you gotten a well, you don't do that, so you
No,
haven't gotten like a cease and desist or anything like that.
no, I've never gotten that. I'm just not a big fan of it. Um, so when people tell me that, I'm gonna I'll be honest. I'm like, you know what? Maybe you could look for a different artist. That's not something I personally like to do.
Hmm.
And they're like, oh no, or maybe we can change something else up. But yeah, but if they tell me, oh, I want, a recreate of the Disney princesses or something, I'm like, I don't want to do that. Sorry.
Is there what's the best way to contact you?
So the best way to contact me is through my Instagram or via my email, and it'll all be, my Instagram is minami.marina_artist, and the email is minami.marina.artist@gmail.com.
And you said you do take commissions.
Yes, I do take commissions, and it varies. It can be canvases or mural works.
Um, you also mentioned you were doing some work at the Calm Center.
Yeah, actually, I've been doing some work for about a year and a half. The reptile house is gone through a big transformation where the old paintings that used to be there from Miss Lamb, uh, they were starting to degrade and getting pale and everything, and they've been there since the reptile enclosure was since Calm was open, like 1981, 80. I'm not 100% sure, but it's always been there. And so they wanted a new, fresh look, and I did about 30 enclosures, and those are just finished. And now the new project is the pillars inside the reptile house. Those will be the skins of the reptiles of the various animals that are in there. So there's going to be a Gila monster, a rosy boa, um, a rattlesnake, and I'm still debating whether I want to do a desert iguana or maybe another snake. But I'm thinking I'm gonna lean more towards the desert iguana because it's just the patterns are so interesting.
Again, thank you for coming through, and then we'll love to do this again.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you for having me on the show.
No problem. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the recording of the sound.